defining questions that every practice should answer, what is unique about the practice, and what sets it apart from others. What is it about this company that amongst all the, East London is very, very funny. Because I do a lot of conferences, right? I've discovered that the people from East London, the optometrists, are not sitting back like optometrists in other provinces. If you go to optometry conferences in Johannesburg, in any other provinces, the optometrists that you find in there are people from East London, who are actually, not only are they attending the conferences in Johannesburg, they're the ones getting invited to go and speak at conferences in other provinces. That says something to me. That says that it's London, because you don't hear them saying PE. They always say, this one is from East London, this one is practicing in East London, they've been there for 30 years, 40 years, and so forth. So you guys are not competing necessarily on the basis of we offering what the other practice down the road is not offering. You're offering the same thing. So what, in the midst of that high level of work, what sets the business apart? And that statement is not applicable to just the optometrist. It's also applicable to the staff. That you as a staff member, what is it, and it's a second question, what is special about the employees? What is it about you that sets you apart? And you'll see what we mean about that later. Why would consumers come to the practice, and what will make them stay? So if a person has been coming to your practice and they've been there 6, 7 years later, and you don't know their name, you don't care about that person. Simple as that. If you don't know that person's name, you really don't care about that. And we are fortunate or unfortunate in South Africa at the moment to live in the most difficult period in the last 3 years. And what I mean by that is that since 2015, there has been an increasing rise in the racial divide in our country. We would all agree on that. Things were okay, but all of a sudden, from 2015 coming this way, there've just been this like racial thing that's going on, and it's getting out of hand. The media perpetuates things to a level that they don't need to. Political parties are just fighting amongst one another. And so the most powerful thing as a practice that you can do when Baba Mkhize walks into the practice is to greet him in his language. So if you are English speaking or Afrikaans speaking, do yourself a favor, go and learn key words that you use on a day-to-day basis in the practice in Xhosa. And vice versa. If you are Xhosa speaking, obviously except you're like the most amazing person because you speak my language, the best language in South Africa, Setswana. So, but if you if you ladies are speaking Xhosa, for example, and Meneer Breitenbach has been coming to that particular practice for years, you need to see him not as Meneer Breitenbach and approach him in a particular manner. So as a practice, fortunately, optometry serves as a powerful tool within our industry on a day-to-day basis. Just step out of your comfort cultural zone, right? And be accommodative as a practice towards those people who are of a different culture towards you. Because what that does, it answers the first question: what sets your business apart? In the long run, when your services are not just about, because right now, 10 years ago, no one cared about the name of your practice. Now they do. Why? Because it's an Afrikaans, I don't know, it's an Afrikaans, right? Afrikaans, but it's not a common surname. And so 5 years ago, a person will see it as the optometry practice. But unfortunately, it's rather optometrists. And so the name, based on where we are right now in the country, when Baba Mkhize walks to the practice, he sees a white man's practice. It's your responsibility to change that perception of him. Does it make sense? So you have to, the time he walks into the practice and he interacts with her, Mr. Mkhize, when he sees her in the practice, right now, what's happening in most practices is that that's just the person that's employed by the white man doing the menial jobs. But remember the fourth week of the training, you're going to have the people training. The people training will be about leadership. How do we get her to function at another level than when she started in the practice? So when you invest in those type of things, all of a sudden, Mr. Mkhize, when he walks into the practice, is not thinking at the back of his mind, because remember, he read all the newspapers, he listened to all the radio stations that told him that you are the white man taking his land. So as a practice, you are able to counteract all these media-related stuff that are around us simply by investing in the next person of a different color or cultural background, and vice versa. How you communicate with Mr. Breitenbach will go a long way in bridging those cultural divides. And all of a sudden, you won't see the impact of it this year. You will see the impact of it 3 years later, 4 years later, 5 years later, when you start seeing your revenue go up, simply because you spoke with Mr. Breitenbach in Afrikaans, for example. Just by explaining the quotation, and you threw in an Afrikaans word there, if he speaks Afrikaans, for example. And he just saw you as a brilliant lady in what you do. All of a sudden, when they sit with the optometrist and you're explaining what they need, they'll be spending more on eyewear-related products as opposed to less. So, as a practice in the Eastern Cape, you guys have power to change certain things in the long run. I don't know if that made sense. And so what are the top 20% of your products and services that yield 80% of your results? In the first book, we have this thing called the activity planning, where we've got a table. It has to do with what are the things that are of high importance and high urgency, and I list examples, versus the things that have to do with high importance but low urgency. What are the things that have high urgency but low importance? And what are the things in the fourth quadrant? What are the things that have low urgency and low importance? And I list examples. So in one of those meetings or trainings that you guys will have, over and above what I have written on the list, perhaps what I've written on that block is different from what your practice deals with on a day-to-day basis. Then you guys will discuss it. So on a day-to-day basis, when you work in the practice, you then working on the quadrant. So the practice manager always just comes back and looks at what's happening in the quadrant. And you'll realize that the level of efficiency and excellence will increase simply by looking at the quadrant. And then that quadrant will automatically tell you what are the 20% of your products or your solutions that produce 80% of the results. And the last one, how the people growing and developing in relation to how the business is expanding. And so, last year, everyone good? Vision straight. Last year, we went on a massive drive. We went to about 200 practices with the team and I in about 2.5 weeks, we walked into 200 practices in less than 3 weeks to discover what is actually happening, what makes the ideal rockstar practice. And we looked at practices not only in South Africa, we looked at practices abroad as well. 3 things: leadership, culture, and vision. So we had this long questionnaire that we had of about 50 different questions that were very random. So we were like doing a personality test on practices with about 50 different questions. And so we looked at number 1 that stood out from the answers that we got was leadership. The current leadership style is there, and the required leadership style is on this side. Everyone happy there? So I'm not going to go into too much detail. So I wanted to show you that the function, this is how most practices are functioning from a leadership point of view. And this is what actually needs to be happening. These guys here, where is it? These guys here, the employees, they are constantly using the computer at your practice, sending their CVs to Vision Straight, because during company time, using company resources, asking or looking for work where they can get more of that. But what is actually required is when the practice says, this is my team, and this is what the team needs to achieve, and this is how we're going to achieve what we need to achieve. All of a sudden, we don't get CVs from these people. They're buying the book. The staff are the ones that, hi Obi, can I get a copy of your book? I know I'm not an optometrist, but I would love to read your book. You never get any requests of the book from these guys. So just a thought there. So that's the leadership one. Then we looked at culture. The current culture that's happening in practices, that one, and this is the one that is actually required. And so it's all about performance and numbers. Every day you get into a practice, you look at, they'll know what the target for the day is. You know, they're very high intense. But when you ask them, what is the value system in the business? No one will be able to answer that. They look at getting the best talented individuals. The management is very sharp. The management, when I'm not dressed the way I'm dressed right now, I know if I take off my glasses and I look this way and I look this way, I have a bit of Jamie Foxx going on. So when I don't look, when Jamie Foxx does not look like me, and I walk into a practice as a black man dressed like David over there, on a Monday morning at 10 o'clock, the white store manager, let me actually illustrate what happens. So here's a computer here, and they come. Jamie Foxx comes in. Oh, Jamie Foxx when he's not acting. He comes, and the white store manager, this is the 2 types of managers that you find. The white store manager, who has been at the business for donkey years, they know everything. You cannot teach them anything. They're the smartest people ever. They are like top notch. What can we assist you with? That's how they start. It's like, as you walk in, can we help you, sir? She's still sitting. She's not engaging me. I just want to have a look at your frames. That will be me, obviously. But even before that, I'm even thinking to myself, why should I even tell her what am I here for? Because her demeanor, her approach says to me she does not care. And then whilst you're about to explain yourself, and remember the other me walks in, and because she knows me, she knows that I drive a BMW, the Jamie Foxx guy, you know, and I spend money. I'm the black guy who spends money in the practice. All of a sudden, because I'm not dressed like David, looking all scruffy and stuff, all of a sudden, she gets up. Hi, sir, how are you? Oh, good to see. How are the kids? You know? So then there's the other manager, the black manager. Oh, sorry. The black manager, they've got the chips. They've got the chips here. And then they're on their cell phone. Yebo baba. And so that's what's happening. Oh, sorry. That's what's happening currently. And so please, I urge you guys, Mr. Rada, I really, really urge you as a business, really start training. And I'm not saying that this is happening here, because I planned to come on Thursday and Friday. I didn't, just to have a view of what's happening. But we need to function on this side. And as you see here, there isn't anything to do with technology, products. Even on the first one, there was nothing to do with what the business does, right? Nothing to do with optometry. There's everything to do with people. Nothing to do with optometry. Everything to do with people and the business culture as a whole, the value system that exists in the business. And then the last one was vision. Also, nothing to do with optometry. Everything to do with people. So a lot of times, people are investing tremendous resources into what the practice does, but not necessarily who is actually in the practice. And so with vision, one thing that will stand out there, the current vision style, it's a transactional relationship versus a relational type of relationship. What we mean by that, you do this, and that which you do equates to X amount as your salary. The practice achieves this, this will be the benefit. As opposed to looking at, as you actually, when you look at her as a young girl, what's your name? Lita. How old are you?
24.
24. When you look at her, at Lita, as a 24-year-old young girl, you should already know and expect that she's not going to be here forever. She's got aspirations. She's got dreams. She wants to get somewhere in her life. And so when your relationship, Manas, when you are working with her, is very relational, you need to be asking her, Lita, what are you currently studying? How can we help you finish your studies? What are you finding? We're not saying go and pay for her studies. We are just saying that when she sees that you care about her, anything that you say and ask of her to do at that point in time, she will do it with a smile on her face. And when the business needs to get to another level, simply because you invested time in having normal conversations with her, all of a sudden, she will go out of her way to make sure that she does not now disrespect the business. Because for as long as it's transactional, any minute that she has, she'll be online, Googling, looking for work, doing all these things. But when she knows that you are greatly invested in her as a person, Not that you have to give her money and all those things, just communicating with her as a person who's going somewhere in life. Never will she ever use company time to do personal stuff. It will come from her. In your meetings, you will never need to tell her, these are the rules of the business. Anyone who's found doing this, this is what's happening. Because she will bring her A game to the practice. So that tomorrow when she says, Manus, I've got a test. I'm ready, but I'm not. I just feel like I just need an extra 2 hours. You won't say no. You won't say no. So that's basically out of everything. And by the way, when we were researching, we found that that is actually what was happening. The leadership, the vision, and the culture. All right. I think this is in the book, so I'm not going to go into detail. We detail it enough in both books in terms of what are the growth potential principles that exist. And yeah, I think we'll leave it for there.